What if the bridge to scaling your social impact was locked into finding your voice, and all you needed to do to cross that bridge was to learn how to calm those voices in your head? We all know them, those voices that tell you you're not good enough, that you can't do it. Well, our guest today, and believe it or not, me too, was one of those people that allowed the voices in our head to keep us silent and afraid to do public speaking. If that's you, get your favorite beverage ready. Join us for this conversation. Don't go away. We will be right back with how you too can gain confidence to do public speaking.
You have a story that is unique, a story that needs to be heard, a story that people care about. So it can get them to stand up for what they believe in. It can inspire them to change. It can inspire them to take action. It can inspire them to care. Care enough to be the light to someone's darkness. Care enough to extend a helping hand to someone who's down and out. Care enough to call things the way they are and see them for what they could be. Your story can make a difference. Your story can save a life. Your story matters. One story changed the entire world. Your story could do the same. All you've got to do is own your story.
If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and our stream today is made possible by StreamYard and BeLive Media. A special warm welcome if you are watching us, our audience, on Amazon Live, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. This is an audience-centric show. So we invite your comments, say hello, ask us any questions about the topic, or if you've got any questions for our guest today, Lisa, please ask away. We'd love to hear from you. Lisa was once terrified to even speak in a small group because she believed it was unsafe to speak. And I personally can relate to that because I had a similar experience. But through personal transformation and coaching, Lisa discovered the keys that unlocked her confidence and catapulted her into becoming a very successful public speaker. She now has 25 years experience as a speaker, a coach, and a trainer. And in addition to that, Lisa is a best-selling author and a top-rated keynote speaker. So I'm not going to waste any more time and invite Lisa to join me. Lisa, a hearty, warm welcome to you. It's so good to have you join me today.
Thank you, Brigitte. I am so excited to be with you and be a part of the show.
You know, I want to dive right into this conversation because I remember 7 years ago how afraid I was of the camera. My heart was palpitating in my chest. It's like I was literally, the moment I hit the go live button, I felt shell shocked. I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. It was like I couldn't enunciate anything. My heart was racing. I felt, I felt stupid looking into the camera. It took me a really long time to overcome this fear of speaking, even though in my everyday life, I never have a problem with talking to people. But once I was in front of the camera, I had such stage fright. I guess you can relate to some of that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, just as you mentioned in the opening, that there was a time that I was deathly afraid of speaking at all. And it was really through an experience where I was asked to speak on the spot and I froze. I just paralyzed. And I realized at that moment that I had a mindset block that was preventing me from speaking because I believed it wasn't safe. And somewhere along the line, I had forfeited my voice. I'd given up my voice. And I realized that, you know what? My voice is actually a gift to the world. I mean, if you think about it, you don't need to speak out loud to talk to yourself, right?
You don't.
But our voice is meant for other people to hear. And so, but what happens when we go on camera, and I've been on camera for a number of years, but when I first went on as well, once I started to learn speaking and overcoming my fears, building my confidence really, and learning from coaches in my life, I began to shift even how I approached speaking. And same thing with on camera. It's like a new audience, a new platform. And the problem is we don't see the audience. And so going on a camera is a whole nother current learning curve for many professional speakers, even, to make that adjustment. We saw that during the 2020 event, that a lot of them were paralyzed. They couldn't make the transition.
I saw that so many, and it's not just, it's everywhere in the world. I see so many, and today I was watching another YouTube video of artists,
Mm-hmm.
who are completely, they're saying it's been 18 months, we've not been able to generate an income, but it's more like they have a mental block against pivoting towards doing things online, because it really is possible. There's a lot of artists who have made the pivot to doing public speaking engagements online. You can do anything you want online. And even if you're doing something that you need to be reimbursed for, you can put things behind a paywall. So everything's possible. How have you pivoted, Lisa? What has it been like for you?
Well, the biggest pivot for me, as I said, I've been online for a number of years pre-COVID, kind of our marker of history right now in terms of that. But the biggest change for me was actually doing live events online, learning how to do live events and doing it well, that not just like a webinar style. And actually, Brigitte, people who have adapted in this season and taken what they normally do in person and adapted to the online resources have actually doubled, tripled their income. And I know for me, that's true in terms of the success rate and the reach of people and being able to
Can I just stop you there, because that's a really, really important part of this conversation, and I call it sort of business without walls, because prior to the pandemic and prior to us pivoting online, we were limited to a local audience. So how has it grown your audience? I just want to emphasize that point, because that's really what has happened.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, and so I'm just going to throw out some big names there you would know, like Tony Robbins, or people like who are used to doing big events in person. Like that was their whole business. Now they actually do it all online through Zoom, but through it's called Zoomzilla. They've created, and they had help from actually a group that they're one of my mentors called Sage, that they are event planners, but they help
Yes.
a lot of people pivot to the online world. So what happens is that people now who usually go to events don't have to pay for a hotel. They don't have to pay for an airline ticket. They don't have to take time off work, that they can do it from the comfort of wherever they are in their home. And so now they have extra resources to be able to, say, buy a program online or something like that. So because of that, you now have more people coming to your event. You have more people streaming online because they don't have to travel. They don't have to take time, all that. And so it's just opened up a whole new area of opportunity for those who are willing to learn how to, and you know what, you don't have to be a techie person. You can hire it out. You can have someone do it for you. Really, you don't even have to have a thing like Tony Robbins. You can do it from your own home. And I've done it from my own home with my laptop, my microphone, my camera, and Zoom or StreamYard. StreamYard I use a lot too.
Absolutely. And as you said, the important thing for anyone watching right now is in order to do your pivot, you don't need to even know the technology that it takes to do a branded broadcast such as what we're doing now,
Mhm.
because people like myself and many others can do the technical part for you. You just literally have to be able to be with, have great internet connection, have a good camera, have good lighting, and that's the only requirement, and bring your content.
Exactly. Yes. You're a great example of that, Brigetti. Like you
Thank you.
just you've introduced me to lots of technology things, and I don't consider myself a techie person, but you have just adapted. You've learned. You've just put yourself in there, and I said, okay, I'm going to learn this, and if I can't do it, or if it's not something I'm going to spend my time doing, I just say, okay, someone I know, can you do this for me? I'll pay you to do this, and then I'll just do whatever I need to do to focus on my genius zone. But I think the biggest challenge that many people, whether it be artists, speakers, who now had to pivot online, before, when they showed up to maybe do a presentation or to do a workshop, they weren't the ones running the behind the scenes, the microphone and all that. But now they feel like, oh, I have so many things to worry about now because I'm doing it all. And it kind of overwhelms people.
Yeah, yeah.
So I heard one time that when we're in a state of overwhelm, what we need is a plan and a strategy. And that
Yes.
gets us out of overwhelm. And
You
so,
you need direction. You need direction, right?
exactly. Yep. And the other thing that really has guided me during this time, whenever I feel like I'm stuck or I trying to overcome a hurdle, I go back to something I read years ago in a book called Limitless. And it talks about how if you find yourself stuck in some way, there's three areas: the mind, the motivation, and the methodology. It's either, a number of those or one of those that you need to change, you need to shift, you need to make some change, make some adjustments to move
Oh,
forward.
absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's very similar with live streaming. It's like with anything. You don't just simply get the software, a camera, and a microphone and lights and hit the go live button. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to have a plan. A good broadcast is by design.
Yes.
You have to plan to have a good and effective broadcast. A lot of work takes place, as with an in-person event. With an in-person event, there's a lot of planning ahead before you actually get to the event. And
Yeah.
when you're having the event, someone actually has to manage the event as it's happening to ensure
Mhm.
that all your weeks and months of planning prior to that is executed well.
Yeah.
And the same process also if you do pivot into doing something online like we are now doing, it's all in the planning.
I agree. And that really is so true. Like preparation planning, it really helps people feel more confident because they kind of have some sense of control or understanding of how things are going to work. And that in itself just helps to dissipate some of the fear and overwhelm. Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong in seeking assistance from a camera confidence coach, which is something I would also do. Now, something that I have found, and I don't know whether you've seen that as well, you've often had people that were public speakers, people that had television experience,
Hmm.
um, people who sort of did live events before, but now when they're faced with a camera, they're shell shocked.
Yes. Yes.
Have you come across that?
Yes, I have. In fact, I've coached people who fit into that category during this time because a couple of things. One is because maybe they were used to getting their energy from seeing people and from watching the energy and responses and reactions of their audience, and now they can't. And so they're kind of like their gauge of whether or not they're on the right track is off.
That's a
And
huge one, Lisa. That's a huge, huge, huge one. I found a lot of public speakers have told me that. I spoke to a gentleman who's a local comedian, for example, and they feed on the energy of the audience. So, what's your real world advice to somebody that is currently stuck because they feel that they need that energy from the audience? How can they unstuck themselves from there?
well, first of all, you need to shift in your thinking because um, speaking is really, and a lot of speakers get tripped up in this. They feel it's all about what they have to give, and they get that as a gauge of whether or not they are on the right track, or whether or not their audience is listening, which are all true. It's important, but you need to bring the energy. You need to show up confident. You need to give. And so it's all about, yes, you need to show up and be your best self and speak as if, someone is right in front of your ideal audience is right in front of you and agreeing with you. Like in a conversation, when you're in a conversation with someone, you are speaking to one person. And so when we get on camera, it's important, well, actually in person or on camera, you have to come with the mindset. It's not so much about even what I am bringing, it's about what my audience is taking away. And
Mm.
so, am I delivering this in a way that's going to connect with my audience, make it relatable, memorable, and not just words? And this is the biggest thing, is emotion. Am I deliberately delivering my message in a way to connect with my audience on an emotional level? What do I mean by that? Well, often speakers focus 99% of their preparation and delivery on the right words.
Mm-hmm.
And the research shows that actually what influences your listener, your audience, to see you as credible, as confident, and believable, words only have a 7% influence. Your
Wow.
voice, your voice has a 38% influence. Your physical presence has a 55% influence. So this is another area, Brigetti, that I have found people struggle going from in person to online because they're not used to using their full body, their voice, as part of that full expression. They've kind of gotten away with a certain level of, say, their tone, their, like, just think about this from a musical point of view, a singer or a piano. Let me just do it from a piano point of view. It's an instrument. Well, our voice is an instrument. And so if a piano player just was playing 2 or 3 notes all the time, we would be thinking they're not very skilled. They're not very,
Right.
right? But however, our voice is an instrument, and most speakers have gotten away with just a slight variation in their vocal variety and not realized that it actually hindered their connection.
Mm.
And now online, this has a much more prominence
Right.
in
Right.
terms of the voice. And so I there's a few things people get lost because they're focused on what their audience may be thinking of them, and they don't really see any reactions, so they get insecure. But also the other thing is just competence. When you're competent in one area and now you've got to learn something else, you feel stupid. You feel like, even though you're not, you
Absolutely.
might be brilliant, but it's like, I've never learned this before. I feel like a dud, even though you're not in other areas, but you're just learning something new. So having to kind of get over that is a big thing.
It's all a mindset, it's all a mindset. Freddie says he likes my mug.
Yeah.
my my StreamYard mug.
Oh, look at that. How did you get one of those, miss?
It's a special mug, and it's big enough to sort of carry me through an hour of talking.
Very nice. Very nice. So I don't know if that answered your question, Brigetti.
Yes, it absolutely has. So I think above all else, it's a lot of mindset work that needs to be done, but it's not insurmountable because we've seen. I mean, who would have thought that someone like Tony Robbins would pull off what he has? I was just gobsmacked of what he did, and if one person can do it, it's a replicatable process. If
It
one
is.
person can do anything, it means it's possible.
You know what? This is so key. And that was actually one of the things that really was a turning point for me when I was struggling in speaking. I had, as I said, really a lot of fear. And I had disqualified myself in many ways because I felt like, you know what? I'm not naturally talented. I'm not an extrovert. So I can't be a great speaker. But then I discovered that actually the keys to effective communication are only at the most 10% based on your talent and 90% based on skills. So the key is, like you said, if you have a growth mindset, if you're willing to learn the skills, then you can become a great speaker. It's a,
Right. That is phenomenal. So I want to dive into your books, and you've got three of the books there that we want to highlight today, and I want to ask you if we can perhaps, shall we start with Prepare to Speak?
sure, sure.
Um, is there anything in that book that to you was a key element that people could use that'll be practical for them to propel them forward if they're feeling stuck?
Yeah, so that book I wrote actually is all about preparation, all about confidence building as a speaker and the keys to build your confidence before you even get onto the stage. And one of the things in there is talking about being clear on what it is you're promising your audience. So what is the transformation or what is the outcome that they can take away? And oftentimes as a speaker, we just kind of go on and go from start to finish with our information. But on the front end, in the very first few minutes, and this is why to engage your audience, let them know in the very first few minutes, sometimes in the first 30 seconds, you give them a promise. What it is they can take away, that they can expect to take away. So this is what's called a promise statement. And most speakers actually don't even include it. So I'll give you an example. So I could be doing a session and I would say, okay, at the front end, I do my opening, then I'd say this something like this. By the end of our session today, you'll have discovered the number one hindrance to connecting with any audience and 3 simple techniques that you can begin to use immediately that will help keep your audience engaged from start to finish. Now, what does that do when I say that? They're like, whoa, yeah, okay, you've got 3 techniques. And so I want to learn that. So now they sit up and they pay attention. They realize, oh yeah, I want to learn that. But also I've told them I've got 3 techniques. So as I go through that, it helps them track and keep them engaged for the time frame. So it's one is an engagement tool, but also it's a tool to help them understand what's in it for me. Every listener wants to know, I don't care what you have to say as a speaker. I want to know what's in it for me.
But Lisa, I think what a lot of people don't realize is when they possibly look at a broadcast like this, people may think it's television broadcasting, but it isn't, because television broadcasting is one-way communication. It's just out. There's no feedback.
Excellent. Yes.
Whereas with live streaming, pretty much like public speaking, the same way as you would feed off the eye contact with your audience, and I think that's one of the key things that people learn when they're doing public speaking is to make eye contact with like one person in the audience, or and then shift to another one person, and then sort of get the energy from
Mm-hmm.
that person in the audience. But guess what? When you're doing something like what we're doing now with live streaming, your audience can actually comment and they have the power to actually direct the direction that you're taking.
Yes.
So you're not necessarily going to go off topic, but they may ask you questions that can enhance the value um, of the content that you're sharing, because you have the opportunity now to get feedback and find out what it is that people really want to know from you, as opposed to what it is that you think people want to know.
I love it. It's so true. It's so true. And it makes it more real time, more interactive, and more collaborative. Like now, the listeners are engaged in the process with you. And as you respond in real time, they feel a part of the process, the part of the conversation.
I mean, it doesn't get better than this. As I
No.
often say to people, if you're paying, I don't know, however many $100 to go and watch a keynote speaker at a live event, what are your chances of meeting that keynote speaker and asking him a question? Your chances are virtually zero.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But in a setting like this, oh my goodness, you've got front row seats to your keynote speaker.
Exactly. The other thing is, you as a speaker, and this, I'm going to shift it here. As a speaker, say for example, if you're doing an event and you know there's a chat going, people are chatting with one another as the event is going on. Just like you said, now you can actually see what are those real-time struggles, what are those pain points people have, what are the areas that people are really gravitating towards or want to know. And so you get to understand your ideal audience so much more intimately.
Oh, absolutely. I think there are so many bonuses to making this pivot to online. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I wanted you to read a section out of the book.
Well, I did. I just didn't tell you I was reading it. But
Oh, were you?
I did. I part in the prepared to speak. I talked about the promise statement, how it's so important for initially engaging your audience and helping them to understand what's in it for them to stay engaged.
Well, you know what? That just speaks to how good a public speaker you are, because you were reading from the book and I didn't even realize it. So
Aw,
kudos to you, Lisa.
thank you.
That was amazing. I can honestly tell you, I have interviewed so many authors over the last 3 years. And you are the first author that has blown me away with being able to read something and look like you made perfect eye contact while you did that.
Oh well, thank you. I'm glad it went over well.
That was totally a wow factor for me.
Well, if you want to know the page it was on page 12.
On page 12. Okay, so that's prepared to speak page 12. Go and have a look.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the next one I'd like to know about is let the real you step forward. Now, again, this to
Mm,
me is such a phenomenal topic, um, and very much in line with pivoting to online. Because one of the things I teach as well when I'm coaching people, camera confidence,
mm.
is to allow people to see the imperfect you.
Yes, yes.
It's a big thing that I often say to people, because none of us are perfect and no one relates to perfection.
No,
So don't aim for perfect. You're not going to attract an audience with perfect.
no, no. In fact, one of my mottos is pursue. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for connection. Because
I love that. That's a good hashtag.
yeah, don't aim for perfection. Aim for connection. Not perfection, connection. Because perfection, when you're focused on either looking perfect or getting the perfect words out, it hinders you from being able to connect with your audience. It hinders them from being able to connect with you because you're focused on yourself. You're not focused on them. So perfection is, and I had to learn this hard way because I'm a recovering perfectionist, growing up. And so when it came to speaking, it just kind of naturally flowed in there. A lot of
Yeah.
people, yeah, you understand, right?
I totally get you on that one, lady, because I had to let go, and I think that was a learning for me during well, one with my chronic illness. I had to learn to let go of my a lot of sort of hang-ups that I had about doing things perfectly and in sequence on time. I had to let all of those go, and then also with the pandemic, it was, another step of learning that it's okay not to do things perfectly or in sequence, and to just learn to go with the moment and be more fluid
Yes.
in the way that you do things.
Yeah, and I think that is this is another shift. Or you talk about mindset is all how we approach and what we think speaking is. I mean, every day everybody who speaks out loud is a public speaker, in my opinion. It's just how great and how effective you are is at connecting with your listener. But the truth is this, that when we focus on perfection, we're so focused on ourselves, we're not serving our audience.
Mm.
We're not serving, and speaking is really about serving your listeners,
Right.
delivering, passing to them. And so one aspect that is in my book, Let the Real You Step Forward, is about this whole concept of your unique story, your unique contribution. I don't know if you've found this, Bridgetti, and I'd love to know from your listeners right now if you have ever struggled with thinking, well, there's other people who are doing that kind of business or speaking about that topic. So who's going to listen to me? Who am I to think that I can compete with that person? Well, let me tell you, it's not about competition. It's about tapping into what's uniquely yours. And so what's uniquely yours is your story, your personal story. And that was something I had to own, was my story and how it tied into my life purpose. And there is a quote by Jim Rohn. Let me just, okay, no, it's not in that context of that. But one of the things that I said in my book is that believing that you are meant to be a gift to the world is really important for you to really own your uniqueness, meaning the combination of your experiences, your personality, your story, your unique voice is all that package that you give to the world as your unique contribution. Because
It's
listen,
own your story is what
own
it
your
is.
story. Yeah. But I meet many, so I work a lot with women entrepreneurs, women speakers, and influencers. And I meet a lot who don't bring their story into their speaking, and they wonder why they're not at being as effective. Because they're trying to come at it from really a disconnect. But the reality is, in order for your listener, your audience to trust you, to see you as credible, they need to see that you're similar, not special.
Now that's a key point. Can I ask you to repeat that again, because that is such an important statement.
Yes, you can write this down. It's your audience need, in order for them to trust you, see you as credible, believable, they need to see you as similar, not special. What do I mean by that? I could say, I have a master's degree in speech language pathology. I have 25 years as a speaker, da 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 da, and say this is why I coach and this is why I can speak the way I am today. Well, do you know what's going to happen? It's going to shut my audience down and say, well, I don't have a degree. I don't have experience like that. I don't have a book. But when I say, I struggled in speaking, so much so that I came to the realization that because of the upbringing that I had in my family, there was a lot of violence and spousal abuse. I witnessed my mom getting beaten. And so as a young girl, I remember being in a hospital room, sitting at the bottom of a hospital bed and looking at this woman whose face was so badly bruised and swollen that she was unrecognizable. And in that moment, I made a decision that it wasn't safe to speak because that woman was my mom. And every time she spoke, she got beaten. So it wasn't until years later, my 20s, that I realized even when I wanted to speak and wanted to say something, I couldn't because I had lost my voice. I had totally had this belief. And so I needed to take back my voice. This is really key because your voice, just like you have a fingerprint, you have a voice print, but your voice is the vehicle that actually connects with your listeners' emotions. And so your unique voice needs to be heard. It is a vehicle of transformation. So when I tell that story, more people are going to say, oh, okay, wow, okay, you struggled with fear. You weren't great at speaking. You had mindset blocks. Like, and look at now what you do. Okay, there's hope for me, right? So people need to see that I'm similar, not special.
There is so much power in what you've just said, and I relate to your story because there was one time in my life too when I lost my voice, when I didn't feel it was safe for me to speak. And to be honest, I didn't like myself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like myself very much at that point at all because I felt my voice was stifled.
Yeah.
Um, and it was only when I learned to reclaim my voice that I finally felt truly free and myself again. Um, I also grew up in an era where girls were meant to be just a housewife and somebody who has babies, and whose voice had no importance.
Mm-hmm.
So learning to unravel that thinking and realizing that there is value in your voice, that it's no different from the voice of your brothers or your male counterparts in your life, that there's value in your thinking, and there's value in you learning to value yourself is part
Exactly.
of that process.
Totally, totally. Yeah, it is. And that's a journey, right? We all have, but going back to the original conversation we had earlier is about we need to be willing to adapt. We need to be willing to embrace a growth mindset. Say, okay, I don't have this skill, or I don't have the ability to do this. I need to learn. I need to seek out someone who can help me. I need to tap into the resources. If this is truly what I want to do, and if it's a part of where I feel like I'm called to do, then it's our responsibility.
Absolutely. That is amazing. So the next book I want to move on to is Speak with Impact, which is on your bookshelf at the back there.
It is. That's that one there. I just wanted to say one thing in regards to the other book you just mentioned, Let the Real You Step Forward. When you embrace your uniqueness, this is actually what makes you stand out. And so from to kind of combat those voices that come, or those reasons why we feel like we can't compete with someone, you don't want to compete with them. You want to be you. And that is what's going to make you stand out.
That is an amazing point because sometimes, we look at people and we think, I want to be just like that lady. I want to be just like that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be that person because that person's already taken. Be you.
Yeah.
People are going to attract you. I always like to use the analogy when people say, do I really want to learn how to live stream or do XYZ or be a public speaker? There's thousands of public speakers. There's thousands of hairdressers out there. So I'm not going to bother becoming. No one ever says, I don't want to become a hairdresser because there's thousands of hairdressers out there.
Exactly.
You are going to be drawn to that person's personality and their style of cutting your hair. And that applies in any industry. People are going
Exactly.
to be attracted to your voice, something special about you.
Exactly. That is so good. So in the book, Speak with Impact, there's a chapter called Practice Makes Perfect, or does it? And
Okay.
chapter 15, practice doesn't always make perfect. So let me ask you a question. If you were practicing bad habits, would you be perfecting your skill?
Oops,
No.
I like that.
No, you would be only getting better at getting worse. You're just practicing bad habits. So the key here is making sure that you're practicing the right skills or the right movements, whatever it is that you're working on, in order to perfect that skill or master that skill, is another way to put it. So this was one of my mentors taught me this years ago. It says, you have to look at what are the habits that will hinder your audience, because there are habits that's going to help you connect with your audience, and there's habits that might hinder your connection. And so a good way to know and to become aware of this is doing what we're doing. You either videotape yourself, audio record yourself, talk about your voice, just listening to your voice, and finding out what are the habits that actually might be hindering my effectiveness, such as in your voice having a lot of filler words, like, those kinds of things can actually have a negative influence on your listener and their perception of you. Or in your body language, Brigitte talked about eye contact earlier, especially so we talk about just the virtual stage. Many people forget that their body is still important. Either they turn off their camera when they're in a meeting room. There's times for that. You don't want to, you got to blow your nose or things like that. But if you're all the time with your camera off, guess what happens? Now they don't have a visual. They don't hear your voice. So you have the influence you have is zero. Whereas if you have your camera on, and even though you're not speaking, there's now a 55% influence because they see you.
Lisa, you speak my language, lady. I often tell people they don't know what opportunities they miss by not having their camera on. You may miss an opportunity for a promotion in your business, for example, because your boss could have been observing things about you that he may not have noticed otherwise when you were in a full office.
Mm-hmm.
But because you have this sort of more one-on-one vision with you, he could have noticed something about you that sort of said, wow, I didn't know that about you. You really deserve that promotion. But because your camera was off, you missed that opportunity. And every time you participate in an online forum, like in a Zoom meeting,
Yeah,
it's free marketing.
exactly.
It's free marketing that you're not paying for.
Exactly.
Use that opportunity to do that. When everybody else has got that terrible up your nose camera look
Yes.
and they've got a messy background, guess what? If you connecting with your camera, connecting with your audience,
Mm-hmm.
if you're paying attention and you're not looking like I'm distracted looking at my phone now,
Yes.
or busy somewhere else, people are going to notice those kind of things
Exactly.
about you, and it's part of who you are, part of your brand. So don't turn off your camera. It's a golden opportunity to brand yourself.
So true. It's so true. So those kinds of things, habits that you have, whether you are like Brigitte was talking about, the camera angle, or just in your movements when you're talking. If you are talking a lot this way, even though the camera is right here, and you might say, well, yeah, I'm thinking when I'm talking. It doesn't matter. Your audience is right here. So the habits, when you become aware of that, then you can hone it, you can adjust it, so that now just small tweaks can make the biggest difference. Like a small hinge swings a big door. It's the same idea as where sometimes just little tweaks in what we do can make the biggest difference in reaching our audience or impacting them in some way and helping them to see what you have that they might need.
So, Lisa, do you also now offer coaching to people who are stuck? Is that
I
part of
do.
what you do?
Well, in terms of stuck in what way?
In terms of becoming a better public speaker, and in terms of people pivoting to online, because online, I don't know about you, but I believe online is going to be here for the for future. I don't think we're ever going back to 100%. I believe that we're going to be moving into hybrid events if things open up, but I don't think online's ever going to go away.
You're absolutely right, and it's already happening. There's already hybrid happening, and I believe the online will not go away because there's so much more benefit that people are finding. Those who are delving in and learning what they need to learn and adjusting are finding so much more benefit. Yes, I do coach. I mean, I have been a speaking coach for a number of years, but definitely during this time, I've been helping coach people to transition to the online, to get unstuck in those ways. You know, there's a whole other platform movement in the social audio platform, which is like the Clubhouse, the Green Room, the Fireside, which is voice only, which is also going to be really gaining momentum. So that's a whole other area for people to learn. How do you show up in a way that is going to stand out with your voice? So I do coach people on those things for sure.
That is awesome. And one of the things people don't realize could make a huge difference is take care of your audio. You know, if you're doing public speaking online, invest in a good microphone, because people can forgive a less than perfect image,
Mm-hmm.
but if they can't hear you well, you're going to lose your audience.
So true. So true. Yes.
And that speaks to the power of the voice, and why you need to use your voice to evoke emotion. We spoke about that earlier in the interview, and that is why these things like Clubhouse and Twitter's got a platform now as well where you can only use audio. Facebook's just launched a new
Mm-hmm.
system where you can also use audio. It's huge, but I think that speaks to what you said earlier, the power of the voice to
Yeah.
create emotion and connection.
Yes. Yeah, and I think too, if people are stuck, say for example, their business and they're just thinking, I don't know how I'm going to survive past this. Think about the opportunities that you have now to reach people in a multitude of ways that you're not restricted to one method. In
Or
our
location.
or location, people are on the go listening to podcasting. They're walking their dog listening to podcasting, or watching a an Amazon live show, so it's people are sitting in a doctor's office waiting. They got their headphones on, they're looking at their screen watching a live show, Bridgetti's show. And it's like, capitalize on those moments that people are now turning to their devices to be entertained, to be educated, and to be really engaged.
I like that. I want to pick up on what you said there now. Where are people spending their time right now? People are spending their time on their mobile devices and on their computers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to reach people, where do you need to be?
Exactly. Exactly. There was a season before 2020 that there were a number of people doing business online. And then the whole world changed and everybody went online. So now it's like, wow, my whole audience
Is online.
is online. I mean, it'd be nice to fly to South Africa someday. I hope I do. But if I can speak to someone in South Africa right here in my home, how much better is that?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one of the things I have absolutely loved about live streaming. And with StreamYard, you can have up to 10 people on screen. So imagine the ability to have people from 10 different countries, from different continents on one screen, and there's no travel involved. It doesn't get any better than that.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. Yes.
Lisa, thank you so, so much. You've shared some amazing nuggets with us. And, if you're watching the show on Amazon Live, Lisa's books are in the carousel. They've got amazing, she's shared some of the nuggets, but if you really want to delve deep into the topics, then do have a look at those books. They are all available on Amazon. Lisa, thank you so much. I'm thankful for your time. I want to say a huge big thank you to Tish as well, who's also joined us on Amazon. A shout out to everyone who's joined us on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Amazon Live was great to have you guys here. And I look forward to talking to you again next time.
Thank you so much, Brisetti.
Thanks very much, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you next time.